We're here today to talk about pimping your ride. This is meant to be kind of like a first principles sort of discussion about what a beginning trike rider needs to start getting ready for their first rides. The first thing to talk about is, what do you want to get out of riding a trike? Where do you want your trike to take you? Do you plan on going for short rides? Is this more for fresh air and exercise? Do you want to go on long rides with your friends? Do you want to do some exploring, adventuring, do some riding around the back roads of the town you live in? Or do you want to go much farther beyond that? You know, this is sort of the first principle that everybody needs to think about when they're starting off. It's, what do I want to get out of my ride? What kind of fun do I want to have? And we're going to talk about some of the essential gear that you ought to have for that and make yourself ready for it. No matter how far you plan on riding, there are 4 things that you ought to consider. The first one of which is water, second of which is food, third, roadside repair for common mechanical issues, and first aid for common medical issues and dealing with the aftermath of a crash. You should plan your nutrition around the amount of time that you're going to be out and about. These are some general guidelines I've gotten from some like sports science institutes. You need between half a liter and 2 liters of water for every hour that you're going to be out and about. And of course, this is all going to be dependent on things like the weather. If you plan on going on a ride on a 90-degree day with 90% humidity, you need to figure out how you can carry as much water as you can. You're generally going to be burning at least between 30 and 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour, and you need to have a way to replenish that. And do it in a way by, well, figuring out what works for you. What food do you like to bring on a ride with you? What kind of electrolytes do you like to bring to make sure that you aren't going to end up totally cramping up on a hot day? Are you familiar with the term bonking out?
Yep.
And have you ever bonked out?
Yep.
It sucks really badly. Yeah, your muscles, basically you no longer have the chemical energy that your muscles need to keep working. And yeah, it's a terrible thing to have happen. Make sure you eat in your ride and you don't bonk out. These are a few of my favorite products for expanding that water carrying capacity. The first one of which we have up there is the Terracycle Adjustomatic bottle mount. And what I really like about it is it fits on any regular sort of like 2-bolt water cage system, and it allows you to run a cage on either side and choose the angle that you want to have it mounted at as well for easy access. Because sometimes some people have a hard time dealing with a bottle that is just mounted basically parallel to your boom. It can be a little bit hard to get at, especially while you're actually riding. One of my favorites is our Fastback 5.0 hydration pack. It can fit up to like a 3-liter or 100-ounce Camelback bladder in there, and you just run the tube over your shoulder. It's super convenient. It's the one that I personally like to use when I'm going on longer rides. When I go on longer rides in my upright, I use a full front triangle frame bag, and I squeeze my entire 3-liter Camelback bladder into there. There are some other companies that make some really great stuff too. Two Fish offers a really elegant solution. It's basically a strap-on bottle cage, and those are great because they're inexpensive and you can put them just about anywhere. Trike also makes something called the bottle pocket, and it's kind of like the feed bags that you're finding more and more nowadays on upright bikes. And the intent is that you're able to basically loop it through your seat. You can carry a couple of extra bottles behind you. Ice has a similar sort of system, but it's a clamp-on mount that's meant to have a cage bolted to it. And you know, while we're talking about first principles here, there's also different styles of cages that might make it a bit more convenient to get your bottle out while you're riding. The first one there, the Lucky Cat, both of these are from Portland Design Works. I really like their bottle cages, and I'm also from Portland, so I'm a little bit biased. They're side-loading cages. That cat's paw is what the retaining mechanism is for the bottle. So you can actually just yank it out from the side. So if you have something like some of these behind-the-seat mounts for your bottles, or it's just plain old easier for you, or you just like it better, a lot of this is driven by personal preference, and you got to figure out what works for you. The Sparrow cage is one of my favorite just sort of conventional top-loading cages. holds your bottle securely, and it's just super easy and fast to get it in and out while you're going along. One of the next big things to consider is basic repairs. I think everybody in here has dealt with a flat tire at least once or twice in their riding career. Carry what you need to fix that. Have a patch kit, have tire levers, have one spare tube per size of tire that is on your bike or trike. A lot of trikes, like take for example, you have a 559, you have a 26 in the back and a pair of 20s up front. You want to make sure you have a spare tube for each of those sizes just in case. Because if you're just stuck out there with one 20-inch tube and you have a rear flat, enjoy your walk. Tire boots are basically, they're really handy if you have a split in your sidewall or you run over a piece of debris that's large enough to actually damage the fabric body of your tire. It's like a giant sticker that you put inside your tire. It's made of a really tough material, and it will be able to get you home. It's not a permanent fix. There's still a tear in your tire. There's a weakness there. You want to eventually replace it, but this is what's going to keep your ride from turning into a walk. The other thing to consider is you need to figure out a way of getting air back in your tire. And the most common and popular systems are small hand pumps or CO2 pumps. And try them both out, see what you like. They both also have different homes for different applications. And I know this talk is meant to be a bit more oriented towards beginners, but if you are running a tubeless system, you need to make sure you have tire bacon or some kind of ready-to-use plug system like a Dynaplug, so that way when you have a puncture that's too big for your sealant to just deal with on its own, you have something that's going to be able to stop that leakage. You can reinflate your tire using CO2 or a hand pump and get yourself home. It's also really critical to have just some small basic tools on you, things like Allen keys so you can make adjustments. If the angle of your seat is kind of killing you or one of your handlebar controls has become a little bit loose, it turns something that might be like a ride ender into a 5-minute roadside fix. And nobody's ever done really adjusting the fit of their bike. And on just about every ride you go on, you might find, oh, well, I want to tweak this angle a little bit. If I moved this just a couple degrees this way, it might work better for me. Having these hand tools enables you to do that, and it's just really convenient. These are some of the basic tools that you want in your tool bag. You got the Rima Tip Top and Park Tool patch kits. People sometimes like to talk about which one is better. As long as you're carrying one, that's all that matters. It's the same thing with tire levers. Like, plastic tire lever discourse is always one of the kind of like funniest things to me because everybody has a story about what brand of plastic tire lever they've accidentally snapped off inside their tire. My advice is, 1, chill out, and 2, figure out what actually works for you and feels nice in your hands that you can do the job with. There's also a couple different styles of CO2 inflators on there. The one from Genuine Innovations, the green one, is basically like a body that screws onto the head, and the head is what actually punctures the CO2 cartridge and routes the CO2 into your valve. The little one that has the cute little like leather sachet that goes over your CO2 cartridge is one from Portland Design Works called the Shiny Object. And people really like those because they hardly take up any space. Your CO2 cartridge is bigger than that thing is. And they can be surprisingly easy to work with and are effective at reinflating your tire when you have a flat. Another favorite of mine is that little hand pump that's up there. That's from the Topeak Morph series. And what's great about those is the integrated gauge they have in them is really easy to use, it's visible, it's accurate enough as far as I'm concerned. And because the handle can fold perpendicular to the pump shaft, and a little foot peg folds out, and the hose has a good bit of freedom. It can actually like free swivel and is long enough. You can use it like a tiny floor pump. It hurts your back a little bit more than a tiny floor pump, but it also probably hurts your back a lot less than dragging your trike home. And that little white sticker guy that is inside the tire there, that's a Park Tool tire boot. It's literally just like a big, tough sticker. Put that on the inside of your tire, you can get yourself home. What if you're riding a little bit farther away? What if your rides are taking you, instead of just around the, local bike paths, you're exploring fire roads and, you're going 25 plus miles out into the wilderness? It's a good idea to carry a little bit more than the basics. Things like chain tools are really, really handy. They're a small and inexpensive way to make sure that your drivetrain doesn't go kaput if you have a mishap like that on a ride. Sometimes lightweight consumables like braking gear cables or disc brake pads can really save your butt. I mean, sometimes it can seem like a little bit too much to carry because it's like, well, what are the odds of something going wrong with X, Y, or Z? Well, if the only thing you have to carry is a cable that weighs just a few grams and hardly takes up any space in your bag, it can really save you, and it can be something that's really worth thinking about. It also depends on your bike and your experiences that you've had with the mechanical integrity of the systems that it has on there. You also need to consider, like, what is your tolerance for risk? How far away from home are you going to be? Are you going to be able to call your partner or a friend or someone to drive down that fire road and come collect you and your broken ride? You should also carry a multi-tool, or if it suits you a bit better, carry just regular, like, individual Allen keys, an adjustable wrench, other tools like that. Again, it's all about trying things and figuring out what works well for you. And this is actually the toolkit that I like to carry when I go on rides around town, or if I am like 50 miles out into the wilderness. I've got a fun little camo case from Chrome. I've got some Park Tool tire patches. The little red box there that you see with the clear cover is tire bacon, and they're literally strips of like tacky rubber that are about the same color as bacon. And you use a tool that looks like a sewing needle that's hidden inside that little orange anodized guy to shove it through the puncture that you have in your tire. I also use a Crank Brothers multi-tool, and one of the things I really like about it is that it has an integrated chain breaker that doubles as your spoke wrench, and it's not a complete nightmare to use. There's also a lot of discourse around multi-tools because they're really convenient. You don't need to think about all the disparate kinds of, drive sizes and fasteners that might be present on the bolts that are holding your bike together. And with this, you just kind of have all of them. The downside to them is, let's say you're trying to make an adjustment on a finicky front derailleur that keeps dropping your chain. And instead of being able to get in there with the little Allen key that you actually need for the job, you're using all of your tools in order to try and get in there and turn that one little bolt. So it can be a little bit more frustrating, on occasion impossible to work with. So try things out. Figure out what works for you. And I like using the Genuine Innovations tire inflator because it can take both threaded and non-threaded CO2 cartridges. That's one of the downsides about the cute little shiny object that I showed you guys in the earlier slide. That one only takes threaded cartridges.
Which one?
So this little guy right here,
yeah.
You need threaded cartridges for that to work.
But the other one, you will take either?
It'll take either. Because that screw-on cap thing that it has is what holds the CO2 in there.
What is it called again? Because I've never heard that.
It's the Genuine Inflations something flate. But Genuine Innovations. They make a ton of small, useful tools like that for bikes, and I just like using their inflators. But I use it because it's nice to not have to choose or worry about having threaded versus unthreaded cartridges, and I'm able to work with whatever I can get. And I've also got some tire levers that are similar to the Pedro's ones. This little black set of pliers up here, those are Masterlink pliers, and inside the handle it hides 4 spare Master Links for me, which is really nice if you end up twisting a link or breaking your chain, you're able to fix it on the go. And with that, you should also carry at least a few spare links of chain, which are just kind of sitting there. The other thing we need to talk about is whether or not you want to carry first aid and what kind of first aid supplies should you carry. one of the most important things is just to be able to take care of like basic cuts, abrasions, road rash, common injuries you get from having a spill on your bike or your trike. If you're a big old pasty white guy with no hair like me, you ought to carry sunscreen. Sometimes the sun will surprise you, and I've ended up with burns through my helmet vents on more than a few occasions. It's not the kind of thing that's like, life-threatening or is guaranteed to end your ride, but it's really uncomfortable, and it's gonna sap a lot of your enjoyment out of it. And that's a factor you need to consider when it comes to first aid. It's also, what if I have something small going on that's making me uncomfortable? If you're managing a health condition, take what you need in order to help you with that condition. If you have asthma or other problems that you need an inhaler to treat, bring your inhaler. If you have a severe allergy to insect bites or stings, take an EpiPen. These things happen. If you're a diabetic, consider taking glucose that you carry separate from your food kit and that you have as an emergency, and a glucose meter. Another thing that is sometimes worth considering is occasionally responding to more severe or traumatic injuries. So incorporating stop the bleed kit supplies can sometimes be an actual lifesaver. Things like tourniquets, hemostatic gauze. It'll, as long as you're able to get to the hospital, it changes your odds of seeing the next day from 1 in 10 to 1 in 3. I've seen people get bad injuries on rides. I've seen compound fractures. It's really unfortunate, but these things happen, and sometimes people just have really terrible luck.
And especially if you're on a blood thinner too.
There you go. That's a really good point. I hadn't even thought about that. So consider incorporating some of these supplies in your first aid kit. And what's really great is you can get a pretty complete first aid kit just straight up off the shelf. And what I always recommend is you start with one of these off the shelf ones, and then as you use it or you get to know it a bit better, you start adding some of the things that you like to usually use to treat yourself when you get hurt. This one right here is the Bicycle Medic bag from My Medic, and it comes in like a basic and a pro version. The pro version, they add some of that clotting gauze and a tourniquet that I was talking about. The next one is just like a heart first aid kit you find at like REI. That's what I use, and as I've fallen off my bike and seen my friends bloody themselves up, I've used it to help them and treat them, and then I've just replaced it with, gauze wrapped around Q-tips and things like that, and stuff that I usually use to treat first aid when I'm at home. There are also kits like that give you things like, the fancy gauze, tourniquets, etc., like that trauma pack from Quick Clot. And I also have a picture of the moleskin up there because it's a really great example of things that you can carry in your first aid kit that can prevent things like, your foot rubbing uncomfortably inside of your new clipless shoes from becoming something that's like completely ride ending or is going to give you a really bad blister. So it's all stuff that's really worth thinking about carrying it with you. I know you don't need it to go on a ride, but it's one of those things that can make it a safer and more enjoyable experience. So think about carrying first aid. Another really important thing is lights and navigation. Are you trying to be seen when you're riding on the road at night, or are you trying to have a system that you can actually see by? I also like running a tail light during the daytime because not every place you ride while the sun is out is going to be well lit. I live in the Pacific Northwest. I'm riding through the shadows of things like tall buildings, trees, and sometimes cars just have a plain old-fashioned hard time seeing you. It's also where the utility of flags really come in. When it comes to lights, you want to consider whether or not you want a generator-powered system or if you're going with something that is battery-powered. And if you're going with battery-powered lights, well, do you want to use something that's USB rechargeable, or do you prefer just running double and triple A's? There's a lot of debate and discourse around that as well. Some people really like the convenience of being able to just change batteries and have fresh lights again. Some people don't like wasting batteries like that and would rather stick with a rechargeable system. If you're running lights, you're doing it right. Start there. The reason I say the correct number of flags is 1 or more is because, especially if you're on a recumbent bike or trike, you have a much lower profile, especially in traffic, than any other vehicle on the road. Those flags can literally save your life. And have one or more than one. Have some fun with it. When it comes to safety, there's a quote I really like from Sheldon Brown. He was talking about a ridiculous 63 speed cruiser he put together. SRAM Inner 3 hub, triple chainring up front, I think like 9 speeds in the back. And his motto was, nothing exceeds like excess. Have a whole bunch of lights. Use reflective tape. Have more than one flag. Anything to make yourself more visible will pay huge dividends in terms of safety to you. And also consider carrying a power bank for recharging electronics on the road. And here's some common light setups. The Planet Bike makes this Blaze Super Flash combo set, and it's good enough to be safe on the road. I've used it for years and years, and when you have fresh batteries in it, it's actually good enough for you to see by. There are also systems like there's the AMP800 from Cat-Eye, that is a helmet-mounted system. Helmet-mounted systems are really nice because it lights up where you're trying to see, and having your lights, like fixed on your boom, it's a lot better than not having lights. But sometimes being able to light up the close places that you're actually trying to look can be really convenient, especially if you're riding in places where there isn't any natural or artificial light. This little black and silver guy from Shimano is one that's actually compatible with their steps system. So if you're riding an e-bike or an e-trike, there are lighting systems available that actually draw their power from your battery. And they're a really convenient system to go with, because as long as that has power, you can be seen and you can see. There's also this little guy over here is a sun generator hub. They're pretty commonly laced into one of the front wheels on a trike or the front wheel on your bike. And it's a generator that provides direct power to your lights, both front and back. With a lot of these systems, you're only really being lit while you're moving. So sometimes people like to run a second battery-powered light in case they're gonna be stopped on the side of the road for a minute. There's a lot of different things to consider here. But again, as long as you have lights, you're a step ahead. And this is a system from Blackburn. It's called I think it's their 360 system, but it's a whole bunch of USB rechargeable head and tail lights, including a pair of side lights that you might mount on the side of your frame or on your fork, which is pretty invaluable when it comes to riding in traffic or in town. So you can be seen from multiple angles by cars. I'm not lost, you're lost. When it comes to navigation, there's a few different ways to do it. I personally like using the Garmin that I have up there. It's a Garmin 530 Edge. Really easy to use. I upload routes I create from Ride with GPS to it. I've used it to lead bike packing trips. It's convenient, it's nice to use. There's also things like just using your phone and Google Maps. There are companies like Night Eyes that make accessories like the Raptor, which is kind of a silicone band system that's actually pretty secure. And you can put it on your handlebars and have navigation going. If you're using your phone like that, definitely carry a power bank, because you're gonna drain it pretty quick. And of course, there's always just good old-fashioned paper maps. And if you're gonna be relying on paper maps for navigation, or you know that you're gonna have a pattern of doing that because maybe you're a bit off the beaten path and you need that kind of reliability, get a bag like this one right here is from Swift Industries. It's a style called a Decalure, and it has a transparent cover on top that's waterproof, so you can actually see the map as you're going along. It doesn't give you the same kind of heads-up convenience, but if you need heads-up convenience from a paper map, it's like, you're on a bit of an interesting ride. And you need places to put all this stuff. You're going places with your gear. You need to think about the things that you're gonna need quick access to. You need to think about the things that you can afford to bury at the bottom of your bags. And you need to plan that carrying capacity around what your needs are for that ride, how many miles you're doing, how many hours do you plan on spending out on the road. If you plan on riding in wet weather, you need to think about waterproof bags. And of course, go with bags that you actually like to use. Roll top bags like Ortlieb panniers are really nice for riding in dirty, wet conditions, but not everybody likes using a roll top. Maybe you need to find something that has a zipper. Again, try things, figure out what works well for you. And here's a few options for keeping it close at hand. These are places where you want to stash your camera, your phone, food. If sometimes equipment for treating medical conditions and things like that. We have the Terracycle seat side mount system, which is one of my all-time favorites. I like using it with an Arkell bag, like that little red one down there in the corner. Really convenient. It's right there next to me. Keep food, my camera in there, flip it open as I'm going along and snack or just get at what I need. That second one up there is, it's called a gas tank bag, and they're generally a lot more popular on uprights, but especially for like a lot of two-wheel recumbents, like, you know, Bachettas, Mystiques, things like that. You can find room for this generally like behind the, kind of funny calling it a head tube considering it's way back from the front of the bike, but it's the head tube of your bike. It's a great place to put stuff. Same thing with the flash pack right there. That's another one made by T-Cycle. Nice because with a simple motion, you can open up the whole top of it and get at everything really quickly. Some manufacturers also make bags that are designed to work with their trikes or their equipment. A really great example are the HP behind the seat panniers, because you know they're going to work. The fit isn't going to be super fiddly, and it's designed for your trike. There are also aftermarket bags like that you can get. This little blue one right here is from a small company called Smoky Mountain Saddlebags. A lot of people like them. They're really convenient. We've also got things like the Fastback tool pouch that mounts on the back of your seat. It's a pretty universal kind of system, and it's really nice for carrying a lot of those repair essentials that hopefully you're not trying to get at while you're riding. Other companies like Radical Designs, they make really cool bags like that orange sort of wedge-shaped one right there. And if you're riding something that is a bit more like a vertical hardback seat, it's a really great solution for carrying all of your sort of like ride essentials, backups, things like that. Sometimes you want to increase that carrying capacity though. Maybe you're doing an overnight trip. Maybe you're doing some touring. Maybe you're doing shopping and you want to take stuff back home with you. There's a lot of different rack options. A lot of great ones come from the manufacturer of the bike or trike that you're riding. I've always been really impressed by some of the stock racks from AZUB and HP. Generally speaking, racks like these have a carrying capacity of somewhere in the neighborhood of like 22 kilograms, 45 pounds and up. So it's really great for longer trips, expedition style riding. Think about how heavy, a 50-pound suitcase is. You generally don't need to take that much gear with you, but it's nice to have, it's nice to know that it is that strong. You can take things home that you find on your ride. There's also a few other systems like we have the Terracycle Easy Trike Rack. They don't have the same high carrying capacity, but they're really convenient because they can be mounted on just about, they can be mounted on suspended bikes and trikes. They're easy to actually just straight up remove that main tube with the supports and mounts for panniers on there. It's really easy to just undo a quick release, pull that off, fold your trike up and put it in the back of your car. A lot of these different systems have their own advantages and disadvantages like that, and sometimes it's a thing you only learn by trying these things out for yourself. We've also got the Easy Reacher, which is a great way of putting panniers under the rider on two-wheel bents, and the Cat Trike Universal Rack, which is nice because it can fit on a lot of their different models, and a lot of trikes that also aren't Cat Trikes as well. And these are some of the bags that you'd want to carry and mount on those. I'm talking about like the big Ortlieb roll top panniers. I love using them. They're waterproof, they're huge, you can throw a ton of stuff in there. They also make, like you saw them on Matt Galat's trike, the really big like side mounted panniers. Those are a bit more of an expensive system. I know that sometimes some shops like Amling's will have like one set in stock. There's also Axiom. They make nice waterproof panniers. Since you're running a rack, you also have real estate on top of that rack to put things. So there are things like, I think that's another, it's an Axiom Ocean Wave bag. something like that to mount on top of your rack to further increase your covered capacity if you don't plan on strapping anything to the top of your rack. There's also saddlebag systems where it's actually sort of where you drape them over the top of your rack. Sometimes people like those for convenience. It's just one thing you pull off and take with you if you're using your trike to commute. And this little guy over here is what's called an anything cage. It's kind of like a water bottle cage, but it opens up a lot more broadly. It's meant to carry a small, lightweight roll top dry bag. They're really great for bike packing. If you want to turn water bottle bosses into a place where you can carry a small amount of cargo or carry your toolkit in there, they're really great for that kind of stuff. You also need places to put your lights and put your Garmin or iPhone or whatever it is you're trying to navigate. And we have a ton of accessory mounts for that. The one that's pictured, some of the ones that are pictured here are the Terracycle bar end shifter mount that's coupled with a 4x5. It's a really great place. It gives you a lot of real estate to put things like e-bike controllers, your lights, your nav system. Mini T's fit right in the end of your handlebars, and they're a great way of offering up more space for some of those things. There are also other accessory mounts that we make that can clamp onto your front derailleur post, get your lights out ahead of you. And some trike manufacturers and other companies like Topeak and Minura also make some light mounts that are designed to be compatible with their models or are meant to be a little bit more universally compatible. You have a lot of room and a lot of license here to get creative. And of course, get yourself a flag. Purple Sky flags are really great. They're really high quality, and we use a lot of materials from 3M. They stay reflective and they don't degrade over long periods of time. A lot of manufacturers also offer flags with or for their trikes. You don't need to go overboard and get super fancy. It's another one of those things where if you have it, you're already ahead. We also make this special flag mount that has 2 mounting points. A lot of existing flag mounts just bolt on to a single threaded hole, which is convenient. It can be out of the way for a lot of other things you might be trying to carry on your trike. But over time, they get loose, they flop around. If you've ever lost a flag, it's one of those awful things that just makes you feel like so deflated at the end of your ride, and you gotta spend another 50 or 60 bucks to get one. Another thing worth considering is we sell rubber shim kits that allow you to mount a light higher up on your flagpole. And especially if you're going to be riding around the city, if you're going to be riding around at night, this will make you so much more visible, and it hardly adds any weight or any trouble, and it's just a really easy way to make yourself that much brighter and that much easier to see. So we've kind of covered the basics. We got the first 4, and you've been doing some riding and you're falling in love with your bike or trike, but you know you can make it better. Maybe it has qualities that you want to improve. Do you need to be a little bit more comfortable? Do you need maybe some other components to change the fit of your bike or trike? Or do you need some assist components? Do you want to go faster? Do you want to increase the amount of miles you can cover in a day? It sounds like those two things are kind of the same thing, but there's the difference between wanting to expand your range and also wanting to just enjoy the experience of speed. And we'll talk a little bit about both of those. Do you want different gears? Do you want to expand your gear range or push higher ratios because you want to go faster? Do you want a smoother running drivetrain? Are you getting drivetrain noise that is driving you nuts? Are you thinking about putting an electric drive system on your bike or trike? A lot of these traits will overlap with each other. Having a more comfortable bike will make it easier for you to go faster and to ultimately do better. One of the first things I recommend, especially if you're trying to make your ride a bit more comfortable, is that you need to get comfortable with your points of contact. You need to think about your pedals, your grips, your seat. These are the things that are actually connecting you to your bike or your trike. And it's important to think about how they feel, and maybe some ways you might want to change or upgrade them. Maybe you're thinking about going clipless. Maybe it's hard for you to get in and out of your trike seat. Maybe some of those assistance accessories would really make it a lot easier for you to ride and actually enjoy your ride. So to start with talking about some grips and controls, everybody has their own kind of favorite style of like shifters. So some people prefer the twist shifters, some people prefer bar end shifters you control with your thumbs, or more conventional style like mountain bike trigger shifters. Depending on what kind of drivetrain you have, you might be able to get all three of those options to actually work with what you have. This is one of those places where you want to talk to your mechanic. You might also consider changing things like your brake levers. Nice brake levers feel really good and actually do transmit a little bit more power to your brakes. Up there I have a Paul lever because those ones are about as fancy and nice as you can get. And you can get them in all sorts of like wild anodized colors if you're trying to add a touch of personalization. Get some grips that feel comfortable. Some people really like just plain foam grips. Quintin rubber BMX grips are also great. Up here, these are the Terracycle Bio grips. Those ones are actually 3D printed, and they come with kind of an integrated soft wrist rest that a lot of people really, really like. Another thing to consider about changing out your brake levers is you can get some like this pair that's shown below. Those have basically an integrated parking brake. You squeeze the lever, push that little silver pin in, and it actually locks your lever in place. It can make it a lot easier to get in and out of your trike, or if you just want to walk away without having to worry about it straight up rolling away, it can solve that problem for you.
Will that work on an e-bike?
What's that?
Will they work on an e-bike?
It depends. With some e-bikes, it depends on what system it comes with from the factory or if you've converted it. Some of those systems have a brake cutoff. Exactly. So with those, you have to stick with that style of lever or those specific levers that have those sensors in them. But for other systems that are like mid-drive, that might not be an issue. So talking about pedals, there's a couple different clipless systems available. You've got, it's the Look Keo Shimano SPD SL system, where it's a giant triangular plastic cleat. A lot of road riders really like them. You get good power transfer. Walking around in the shoes with the cleats on is a bit of a joke. You sound like a horse, but they also feel really good. You have a lot of positive engagement and good power transfer. The other style is a style that uses smaller metal cleats. They're more typically referred to as like mountain bike shoes. Here we got the venerable Spandal. Shimano makes a style of sandal that actually has, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, really popular among like recumbent and touring riders. The metal cleat is recessed far enough into the shoe's sole to allow you to actually like walk around safely, not sound like a horse, and lose your footing. There's also different styles of clipless pedals that you can get. Like for these SPD systems, you can get some that are two-sided that have one side that has enough tread on it for you to actually ride with conventional footwear, and the other side is your sprung clipless system. And a style of pedal I'm frankly a huge fan of that really have a home on recumbents is just big old beefy mountain bike or BMX pedals. They have a lot of surface area, they're comfortable, and there's no silly shoes that you need to wear in order for them to work. Another huge element of comfort is thinking about maybe upgrading or changing the seat that comes on your recumbent. There's a company called Ventasit that makes this really cool style of like seat pad mesh. It's not exactly waterproof or water resistant, but if it gets wet, you shake it off, it doesn't hold on to any moisture, and you're fine. It's a really popular aftermarket choice for a lot of seats, especially hard shell seats. Also, trike manufacturers will frequently offer seat pad kits, like these ones from HP and Terracycle, that you can put over or replace your existing seat cushions with to give you a little bit more cushion under you. And these are some of the assist accessories I was talking about. Us at Terracycle make a crank shortener and pedal swing combination, and these are really great for, like, let's say you have limited range of motion in your knees or one of your knees. You're able to use this system to effectively make a smaller circle with your injured leg and keep you riding. We also make exit assists that bolt onto, like we make these for cat trikes. They bolt onto the direct steering controls that come off of the kingpin, and the nice sort of curve shape allows you to kind of like shuffle your hands up as you're getting out. And we also make them in extra long lengths if you need a little bit of extra support. The other set of exit assists up there are ones that actually come from cat trike. They're a different shape, they're differently adjustable. You know, sometimes you can get these from dealers with your trike. Sometimes you might be looking at them as more of an aftermarket thing. Figure out what shape would work best for you, figure out what height would work best for you. And other things like neck rests are really great for just improving comfort, being able to lay back and not have to constantly support your head when you're reclined, which can wear out your neck and feel awful after a while. And is also kind of critical on really low trikes and bikes where your body is reclined at a really far angle. HP also makes seat riser kits. So if you have a hard time getting into a low seat, they can just straight up raise the seat for you, which can be really, really helpful. And I think this is from Haza. They offer pedal systems that have a integrated calf brace. So if you have issues with like knee stability or leg mobility, those can be really helpful and a complete game changer for people who might be having a hard time riding their trike. And there's also other little things like wrist rests that help you support your arms and can make riding a little bit less taxing over time. Let's talk about going fast. So if you want a light, fast trike or bike, your best bet honestly is starting off with one. Get yourself a trike like a Greenspeed Aero or an Ice VTX. These are some of the lightest and fastest. You might not get something quite that extreme, but if you want light and fast, there you go. For bikes, HP makes things like the Speed Machine, Buscetta makes the Corsa, really light, fast, sort of road-oriented recumbents. You can get a higher gear ratio. Having a drivetrain that is not burdened by a whole bunch of friction really helps. It's also a lot quieter and just nicer to use. Doing things like getting lighter wheels or other lighter components can help. It's honestly, I'm much more of a fan of upgrading some of these parts for the way that they feel instead of how light they are. That is, it turns into a black hole to throw money into really quickly. There's a lot of other things you can do to make yourself faster first before you go out and buy, you know, a really lightweight $2,000 wheel set. Getting slimmer tires helps, just having lower rolling resistance, putting a little bit less rubber on the road. Kind of an obvious one. Electrifying your bike or trike can really help. Just straight up adding power and adding wattage. Things like fairings and aerodynamic aids can help too. They're also great for kind of keeping you a bit out of the weather and can keep you from freezing on cold days, keep a little bit of the rain off of you. And there's a huge cross section here between speed and comfort. If your bike or trike feels good, it's a lot easier to go out, push the pedals hard, and have a good day. Here's a few different really popular gearing options for recumbents. There's the roll-off 14-speed internally geared hub. What's really cool about both the roll-off, the pinion gearbox, and a SRAM 1x system is that they all offer 500% plus gear range, which is generally more than what you need. There's also accessories like the Schlumpf drive, which is kind of a wild system. Basically, instead of having where you expect your crank bolts to be, there's kind of a giant button there that you can hit with your heel. And if you're running, like, say, a 24-tooth chainring, you kick that over, there's a planetary gear system inside of your bottom bracket that makes it basically, mechanically speaking, like you're pushing a 60-tooth chainring. It can really, really expand your range. You can also just straight up get different size chain rings, a different size cassette, One other thing to hit on before I change the slide is you can get something like a pinion gearbox. You need a special boom in order to run one of those, but it's basically a 14-speed internally geared bottom bracket. So it's going to be running out to just one cog on the back. They're super reliable systems. Internally geared systems are really wonderful. Some people don't like the way they feel because they can be a little bit like mushy or not quite as great on power transfer, but they more than make up for this in terms of just straight up reliability.
We're going to go ahead and get back to our slideshow from Cyclicom here. So another piece of equipment you might want to consider when you're pimping out your bike or trike is getting a fairing. The advantage of a fairing is that not only is there a increase in aerodynamic efficiency, which means a bit less effort for every pedal stroke, it also keeps you out of the weather. Having that shield over your legs and feet means you're not going to catch a breeze up your pant leg, and you're going to be more comfortable riding in cooler weather. There are full-size fairings like our Terracycle winter mount with wind wrap fairing over there on that beautiful blue AZUB. On the right, you see an HP street machine with the streamer mount fairing. That's one made by HP for their bikes and trikes. Haza also has an option for some of their trikes as well. It's, unlike the other ones, not transparent. It's kind of a fabric-y sort of fairing that's meant to go with their cat diesel trikes. And the little guy you see down there at the bottom is the Terracycle spring mount. The spring fairing is meant to be a smaller, sort of easier to deal with fairing, but it still does a great job of keeping your feet out of the breeze and out of the cold, and can really be kind of like a make or break component for winter riding, keeping you comfortable. The next upgrade you want to consider, be it because you're chasing speed, power, comfort, or just a nice ride, is upgrading some of your drivetrain components. And here we have some of Terracycle's idlers. There's a 23-tooth Elite Series idler. We make ours with 661 machined side plates and machined titanium cogs. Those ride on ceramic hybrid bearings. There's also a 15-tooth you can see there in the middle top. We also make something called the Terracycle chain tensioner, which is a pair of opposing arms with Delrin pulley wheels on the end. And what those do is put a Z-bend in your chain that takes up a lot of extra slack, which means you're able to adjust the boom and still have your drivetrain work right, which means you're able to share your bike or your trike with your friends. Another important option to consider, you can see down there on that Cat Trike Expedition, is upgrading to floating chain tube holders. Rigid chain tube holders create drag on your drivetrain and usually tend to end up being louder and dirtier than their floating counterparts. When the chain tubes are allowed to float around and have a little bit of slack in them, it means that your chain is able to run smoothly and it's not just fighting the position of the chain tube. Another upgrade, one that we get asked about a fair bit, is what about upgrading my bike or trike to an electric bike or trike? And going through these in kind of ascending order of cost, typically some of the least expensive and easiest kits to install are the Bafang mid-drive kits. They take the place of the bottom bracket on your bike or trike. This is the kind of thing that you would want to be an experienced mechanic, or with the aid of an experienced mechanic, be installing on your bike. It's a mid-drive, which means that it powers your drivetrain through the bottom bracket and through your crankset. So you're not changing your wheel out. You're not doing anything like that to it. Hub drive motors can be a really a good solution for some folks, especially say if you have a triple chainring up front and you want to keep that. Most electric systems are a one by. You can go with something like this kit from EBO here. Electric Bike Outfitters makes a lot of really convenient and high quality kits to electrify your ride. They also offer a higher end mid-drive solution as well. And There's different places that you're going to be able to mount the battery for this system. You can see in some of them it is mounted on clamps attached to the frame. Some of them it's mounted to a rack. There's a few different ways of going about it depending on the kind of system you're using. Another thing you can do is get a electric retrofit kit from the manufacturer of your bike or trike. Down here we have the Terracycle and the ECAT upgrade packages, which will use a off-the-shelf mid-drive system like Bosch or Shimano E-Steps to convert your ride to being electric. Like I mentioned earlier, you need a place to put your battery. To go through a few different mounting options here, there's the Terracycle vertical battery mount. It just attaches to your ride with a single frame clamp, and it is very adjustable. So you're going to be able to keep your battery level, or if you need to change the angle of it, you can have it in just about any position you need. We also make a universal battery shelf, which is compatible with a lot of different electric systems, which can be nice if you're running something like, say, a Falco or something where you might have a hard time finding a bolt pattern to carry your battery. We also have the mid mount, which is sort of a quote-unquote dolphin style mount, where it mounts underneath the boom of your bike or trike, and it just uses a single clamp and a diamond-shaped plate to bolt your battery cradle to. Racks are another popular option for E-systems. It's a great way to just have the weight behind the rider. Some bikes and trikes, it can be a good option, but it all kind of depends on your ride and what kind of a system you want to go with. And over here in the far bottom left, we have a Terracycle bar end shifter mount. This is an accessory mount that's really great for installing things like throttles because it keeps it there right at hand. And for a lot of single finger or thumb activated throttles, it's a really convenient mounting option, and we really like those. And an important thing to remember about getting your ride dialed for you is that it's a bit of a journey. It takes trying a lot of different things. And most importantly, it takes going out and riding your trike and putting the miles in to see what actually works for you. And if you're having fun, you're probably doing it right. Thank you very much, y'all.